Good morning student, standard 10th English medium, subject history. Lesson number 1, that is historiography development in the West. In the previous lecture we have seen that is introduction of this lecture, introduction of this lesson, and we have seen that is the research method for the history. Now here we are going to see the first point, tradition of historiography. 1.1, that is tradition of historiography. From this the point we have taken here historical writing and historian. What is the mean by historical writing and what is the mean by historian? We will see here the definitions for both of them. So first, historical sources are critically examined. You know that whatever the sources of these are material sources, then written sources, oral sources, whatever the sources of historical, they are critically examined and the past events are preserved in writing. And the past events, they are preserved in writing. Okay. At first, what they have, the historians are critically examine them, and the past events are preserved in writing. The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. A scholar who writes such a narrative is a historian. So here you will find the definition of historiography, and the second definition you will see historian. What is the definition of historiography? The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. And a scholar means an intellectual person, or we can say expert person who writes such a narrative is a historian. So now historical writing, we will see here historical writing. We have seen about historian, now we will see about historical writing. Historian is not a position to include all events in his narrative. So he is not taking all the events in his narrative because all events are not important. Okay, he examined them, he observed them, then making number of comments on this one, then he is writing in his narrative. So he decides the events which he thinks should reach the people. He know that which events knows to the people, which are important, which are most important, which are less important. So likewise he has taken the events which are very important and he thinks should reach the people. These events are taken for the narrative. His perspective on those events depends on the conceptual framework he adopts. His perspective on depend upon whom? That is depend on the conceptual framework he adopts. Though historiography was not prevalent in the ancient societies, the people living in those times felt that they should pass on the stories about the life and the valor of the ancestor to the next generation. You know that though historiography was not prevalent in ancient society, that time it was not prevalent, but the people living in those times, means contemporary time, felt that they should pass on the stories they have to pass on next generation about the life and valor of ancestors. Life means they are living life, and valor means that is the adventurous part of the ancestors means their forefathers. Okay, so valor of their ancestor to the next generation. So these ancient communities used various means like cave paintings. Okay, we will find cave paintings in them. Then storytelling, songs, ballads means poada, the song which is written with that is we can say a person who sing this and tells a story in his singing. It is called ballads for this purpose. In modern historiography, these means are looked upon as sources of history. So whatever the parts, that is cave painting, storytelling, songs, ballads, okay, in this modern history, these means are looked upon as the sources of history because we are getting lots of information about the cave paintings, about storytelling, about songs, ballads, etc. So in this way here, in this point, that is 1.1 tradition of historiography, we have seen that is the definition of historiography, the definition of history, and we have seen the historical writing, and the points which covered here we have taken, that is what is the sources of history, how we get the understanding of them, and how the historians are writing to narrate or to narrative in his writing of the history. So in this way we have seen this one. In the next in the next lecture we will see 1.2. Thank you very much. Good morning student. Standard 10 English medium, subject history, lesson number 1, that is historiography development in the West. In the previous lecture we have seen the point 1.1, okay, in the previous lecture, and this point is that is tradition of historiography. Now we are going to see that is the activity do you know from page number 2. If you see your textbook, you will find here the activity do you know. Here you will find ancient inscription in France. Okay, ancient inscription in France. So the Louvre Museum, which museum? The Louvre Museum in France has an inscription which dates back to 4500 BCE. BCE means what? Before Christian era. Okay, before Christian era or before Christ era, that of Sumer civilization. There they find what they find, that is the inscription they find in the France, and it was kept in the Louvre Museum. And from which date back it has from 4500 BCE, that is of Sumer civilization. The names of the Sumer civilization or Sumerian kings, the names of the Sumerian king, it is a civilization. Sumer is the civilization, and from that Sumer, the king called as Sumerian king. The names of the Sumerian king, stories about their struggle. About their struggle means fight, and of battles fought by them are preserved. So what information preserved in the that is Sumer civilization? There the Sumerian kings stories about their struggle, means about their adventurous struggle, and of battles. Battles means fights, wars, they fought by the war fought by or battle fought by them are preserved in various inscriptions. So all the information about the Sumerian kings, Sumer civilization, their struggle, their battles, their fights were preserved in the form of inscriptions which we found from the France. It even recorded a battle fought between two kingdoms. So it even recorded a battle fought between two kingdoms as image or an image of a general. You will find in this picture, the picture is given there on page number 2. An image of a general and file of soldiers. File of soldiers means that is group of soldiers following him is seen on it. You will find the pictures of the soldiers which were following to his general. Okay, to their general. In this way, this is also important activity from your page number 2. Now the point number 2, that is 1.2, modern historiography. Which one? Modern historiography. First we will see the characteristics. Characteristics means what? That is the features. Features of modern historiography. See, here are 4 characteristics, and we will see them one by one. The first one, the method of modern historiography begins with the formation or relevant questions. Okay, the method of modern historiography begins with the formation or relevant questions which are asked in logical order. Okay, these are the questions. Okay, and these questions are related, that is relevant question to the modern historiography, and they are asked in logical order. Hence, it is akin to scientific method. Means it is related to the scientific method. Okay. Second characteristics, we will see that these questions are anthropocentric. Anthropocentric means regarding human science. Okay, regarding human science. These questions are anthropocentric, which means they center around man and his activities in the ancient societies. How was the man living his life? How were the activities of the man in the ancient times or the ancient societies? These questions are regarding with the anthropocentric. Okay, so this is also one of the characteristics of modern historiography. Third one, the answers to these questions are based on reliable evidences. Reliable means believable, which is a true, which is a genuine evidences. Okay, and are presented in logical order. Logical order is very important while writing a history. So what? reliable evidences are very important. They are presented in the logical orders. Fourth characteristic we will see here, history presents a trajectory of man's journey. Trajectory means what? That is a curve path. Path means way. History present a trajectory means curve path or way of man's journey. How was the man doing his journey? How was the men were doing their journey with the help of his past deeds and actions. They have done number of deeds, they have done number of actions, but their journey method or their journey information we are getting from the trajectory. Okay, so in this way we have seen here point 1, point 2, and before this one we have seen do you know activity. So in the next lecture we will see 1.3, that is development of, that is scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. This point, and one more important point in this lesson, that is notable scholar. So 2 points are remaining. We will see these points in the next lecture. Thank you very much. Good morning students. Standard 10th English medium, subject history, lesson number 1, historiography, development in the West. Okay, in the previous lecture we have seen 1.1 and 1.2 points. Now we are going to see the point number 3, that is 1.3, development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. What we are going to see, that is development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. So just see development in scientific perspective. What are the scientific perspective? We will see in this lecture. Just Europe achieved remarkable progress till 18th century CE, that is Christian era, in the field of philosophy and science. Which continent? Europe continents achieved remarkable progress. Remarkable means that is a very good progress in where? In 18th century CE, in the field of, that is philosophy and science. In the field of philosophy and science, scholars belonging to one school of thought presented the idea of applying this knowledge of scientific method to study social and historical truth. Scholars means expert persons. They are belonging to one school of thought presented the idea of applying the knowledge of scientific method to study social and historical truths. Whatever the social and historical truths they want to present or they want to apply the ideas about knowledge of scientific methods. Okay. After that, discussions were focused on objectivity. Discussions were going on. Their discussions were focused on what? That is objectivity in history and historiography. Okay. Objectivity in history and historiography. History gained importance over philosophical discourses and divine phenomena. So here, history gained importance over philosophical discourses and divine phenomena. In the year of 1737 CE, that is Christian era, the Göttingen University was also founded in Germany for the study of history. There is a separate department of history subject. Okay. Later, German universities became centers of historical studies. Okay. Likewise, means Göttingen University, some German universities also became the centers of historical studies. So here in this way we have seen the scientific perspective which are very helpful for the development. So we have seen here some points. Now the next point is that annal schools. Which one? Annal schools. Just see, at the dawn of 20th century, dawn means that is the emergence, okay, origin. That at the dawn means beginning of 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France and it is known as annal schools. In which country? That is in France it was aroused. Aroused means emerged. Okay. In which century? That is the century of 20th century. Beginning of the dawn of 20th century means beginning of the 20th century. A new school of historiography arose in France and it is known as annal school. An idea was put forward that history is not just about political events. An idea came forward or put forward. What was the idea? The idea is that history is not just about political events or the kings or great leaders or wars, politics and diplomacy. So history is also, it is also about climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communications, that is social divisions and their collective psychology, etc. Means history is not just about political events, kings, great leaders, wars, politics and diplomacy, but it is about the climate, it is about local people, it is about agriculture, trade, technology and means of communication, social divisions and their collective psychology also. Then the French historians were the pioneers of the Annals School. Who were the pioneers for the Annals School? The French Revolution. Because the Annals Schools was started by French historians. It was started with whom? That is the French historians. So in this way, here we have seen Annals Schools. In the next lecture, we will see that feminist historiography, and after that we will see the point 1.4, that is notable scholar from this lesson. Okay, so you have to mark out in your textbook the important points and try to learn these answers for the Annals School and for the development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. Thank you very much. Good morning student, standard 10th English medium, subject history, lesson number 1, historiography, development in the West. Okay, now we are going to see feminist historiography. Before, in this lecture, we have seen the Annals Schools. Okay, we have seen Annals Schools. Now the third point, feminist historiography. In this feminist means that is of women, women's related to the women. So the restructuring of the history from the perspective of women is called feminist historiography. This is the definition of feminist historiography. The restructuring of the history from the perspective of women is called feminist historiography. Then this thought was propounded by French feminist. By whom it was propounded? By the French feminist scholar Simone de Beauvoir. Okay, the name of the scholar from the French feminist, the name of this feminist, that is Simone de Beauvoir. Okay, Simone de Beauvoir. So this thought was propounded by her. Then feminist historiography emphasized to include women in history and to rethink on the male dominated perspective of history. Okay, at first male were writing history, male person, that is the they are writing history, but women were not included this one. But after that period, that is feminist historiography emphasized, the emphasize means give focus to include women in history and to rethink on the male dominated perspective of history. They are rethinking on this, that is male dominated perspective of the history. Later means after, many aspects of women's life became the focus of historical research, such as their employment, their role in the trade union, family life, etc. Means the factors like that, the employments, their role in trade union, family life, etc. are discussed here. Okay, the research are going on this one. Then after 1990, women were portrayed as an independent class. After 1990, women were portrayed as an independent social class or class. Okay, in this way we have seen here the note on feminist historiography, or the point from, that is feminist historiography. Now 1.4, the last point from this lesson, that is notable scholar. Okay, we will see just the names of the notable scholar here. After that we will see them one by one. Okay, first one, René Descartes. Second notable scholar is Voltaire. Third is George William Friedrich Hegel. Fourth one, Leopold von Ranke. Fifth one, Karl Marx. And sixth one, Michael Foucault. Okay, so these are the notable scholar from the Europe. Okay, so we have to write, or we have to take information of each one from this one, that is René Descartes to Michael Foucault. All 6 scholars information we have to take in the next lecture. Okay, so what you have to point out the sentences in your textbook. Okay, write, underline them with pencil and try to learn for the feminist historiography. And also you have a question of means draw a concept chart or complete the concept chart of notable scholars. So there you have to write 4 notable scholars. So here 6 out of 6 you have to learn about 4. Okay. So in this way you have to study for this question, that is write a note on feminist historiography and that is notable scholars. In the next lecture we will see the information about the scholars in means one by one. Thank you very much.